Hi, this is Carl with another SOP video for managed service providers. Today I want to talk about your PSA or ticketing tool, and let me be super clear. There's a difference between a PSA and a ticketing tool. In many ways, a PSA, a professional services automation tool, is the ultimate managed services tool. I think to be in managed services, you have to have RMM, remote monitoring and patch management. That's cool. That gets you in the door. A PSA allows you to take your business to the next level. One way to understand the importance of a PSA is to look at the information that's inside of it. So it starts with, oddly enough, your own business. So each of your employees should be in there, certainly all of your technicians. And in a perfect world, you will use your PSA, your ticketing system, to keep track of their labor. And interestingly enough, even though I think that's where you start, many people never get that far. They turn on the ticketing system and they go do tickets, but they don't manage time as a primary piece of what they do with their PSA. And I think that's interesting and probably a little bit odd. It's sort of like buying QuickBooks to keep track of billing but not keep track of income. Or in this case, keep track of income but don't keep track of expenses. The second kind of information you're going to put into your PSA is contracts. So contracts are going to be generically the things that you sell. So when you look at your three-tiered offering, you will have a platinum, a gold, and a silver contract, and each of those then has certain components. Or you might have your 5-pack or your Cloud 20-pack that's got certain pieces. And so you sell one gold level contract or you sell one Cloud 5-pack, and that represents a certain number of services that are to be delivered to a certain client. The third type of data that you put into the PSA is your actual clients. So when you look at your clients and you attach them to contracts, now you say, okay, when this client calls, we charge them this much money. They have this sort of a response time. These are the minimums, right? It all begins to work in nice, juicy ways. Next, and very importantly, so the fourth element is actually a subset of the third, and that is, I think you should list all of the employees, all of the people at each of your clients. And this is sort of a philosophical thing, but basically, here's why. I would like every person at each of your clients to be able to enter a ticket into the system. Why do I want that? Well, you may never do those jobs. You may not fulfill those tickets, but you will be aware of everything that needs to be done at that client's office. And so you'll never go into their office and be surprised because somebody said, hey, this printer hasn't worked in a month. Everybody should be allowed to make you aware of the problems, the issues going on at that client's office, and then if it's covered by managed services, you can just execute it. If it's not covered by managed services, you now have a list that you can take to your primary contact and say, which of these do you want to do, which do you not want to do? There's some acknowledgement that the end user may not be aware of bigger stuff coming down the road, and so some jobs will go undone because they're not really necessary for whatever reason. So you have all of your employees, so you can keep track of time. You have contracts, and then you have clients, and then you have all of the users at the clients. So that's kind of the core information that you set up that those things don't change a lot over time. Next, you have the actual ticketing system. There are many ticketing systems that don't keep track of time. They don't have contracts. They don't even allow you to put in all of the client contacts. They are just for keeping track of a to-do list, essentially, which usually has the client's name, but not all of their users. So there can be a huge difference between a ticketing system and a PSA, and you may use one and not the other. Some people use their PSA, but they don't put tickets in it. Other people use a ticketing system, but they have to acknowledge it's not really a professional services automation tool. Ultimately, if you use the ticketing system, you will be able to track all of the time for all of your employees and all of the time that's related to clients. Remember, ultimately what you do in your business as a service business is you buy time and you sell time. So when clients put tickets into the system, that is time coming into your system. When your employees work those tickets, it is time moving out of your system. A good PSA will be able to run a report that allows you to track backlog. Backlog is simply all of the time inside your system. The amount of time in your system, the amount of work that needs to be done, is not a bad thing. You need to have that number. It's got to be real. But what constitutes good backlog? Is it 3 days worth of labor? Is it 200 hours, 500 hours, 1,000 hours? Only you can know, and the only way you can know is to track it consistently over time and know when you're too busy and when you are slacking off, and maybe you might actually tell some employees that they don't need to come to work that day because you don't have enough work. Somewhere in the middle is a perfect balance between time coming in and time going out, a perfect balance that creates a good, sustainable backlog in your system. Now, here's the biggie. The big reason that you need a PSA is because ultimately the difference between using Excel or QuickBooks or just some ticketing system and a PSA, the big difference between those things is that a PSA allows you to take good habits, good, sustainable, scalable processes and procedures and put them into an automated tool. A well-designed PSA will basically help you to run your business the way it should be run. Many people ignore their PSA. They don't use all of its features because it's faster and easier to just write notes to themselves, take slips of paper, try to remember everything. What ends up happening is they have all these bad habits, and the PSA would only force them to have good habits, so they don't want to use it. Biggest example of all time is really small companies. The owner will excuse themselves from putting information into the PSA. Why? Because A, they're the owner, they don't have to, and B, they're just going to try to remember it and keep all those balls up in the air at the same time. Eventually that can't happen. I sort of slid it in there, but the two big rules you have to remember: your processes have to be scalable and your processes have to be consistent. So if you want to make sure that you do the same thing time and time and time again, replicate your success and grow your company, it has to be consistent and it has to be scalable. A final note about picking a PSA. This is not an irreversible decision. Big picture, in life, there are very few irreversible decisions. Picking a PSA feels like the biggest decision of your life until you decide to change to a different PSA, and then it becomes just a pain in the neck. It is a big decision to decide what tool you're going to use to base your entire company on. That's true. But big picture is, every day of your life, you get to wake up and decide whether or not that's the right PSA for you. And I don't recommend that anybody switch PSAs once a year. But if you don't have the right tool, for whatever reason, it doesn't help you get your system working the way it's supposed to, then it's time to change to a different tool. Why is there more than one kind of PSA? Well, because we all operate differently. There's so many different apps for, name anything. Yoga, keeping track of a shopping list, whatever. There's so many apps for everything you could possibly imagine. Why is that? Because our brains all work differently. You have to find a tool that works for you. I exchanged emails yesterday with somebody who casually mentioned that there are 14 PSAs in our industry. And I thought, wow, I'm not sure I could name 14 PSAs. If I could, it would take me quite a while. I can get to 5 or 6 pretty quickly, but 14? I don't know. But the good news is, with 14 PSAs, there's one that is right for your business, what you want to do, how you want to operate, and where you want to go. So put some work into it, make a good choice, but don't fret over it and don't wait for the perfect choice. Choose a good PSA, and if it doesn't work for you, choose a different good PSA. Now, when I ran my company, so had a managed service business for about 25 years. At first, PSAs didn't exist. The first one I ever bought was ConnectWise, and then after about 4 years, I moved to Autotask, and then after about 5 years, I moved to SolarWinds, which was something else at the time. So I've made the switch a few times from one PSA to another PSA, and I can tell you, it's not pain-free, but I lived. Nobody in my companies worked extra hours. Nobody died. Nobody got fired. Nobody yelled and screamed at anybody. You can make the move from one PSA to another, and the reason is that once you have good processes and procedures, you simply create the new PSA, you program it and make it conform to your processes and procedures, and it then does its ultimate job, which is to help you use that tool to most effectively manage your business. So take it seriously, but don't freak out about it. For Small Biz Thoughts, this is Carl Palchuk, wishing you the best of luck in your managed service business. Here's your SOP for this video. Like it, share it, subscribe to the channel, and share it on social media. And if you haven't visited SOPforsMB.com, now's a great time to do that as well.